On October 6, 2025, the calm of dawn over southern Russia shattered as Su-34 fighter bombers surged off the runway at Morozovsk Air Base, their afterburners roaring like thunder across the fog-laced tarmac. These aircraft were not flying a routine patrol. Their mission was deliberate, precise, and ruthless to cripple Ukraine's vital energy network by striking deep into the industrial centers of Crivier. Inside their cockpits, the pilots' voices crackled over encrypted comms, curt and measured. They knew their targets, their timing, and their fuel margins to the decimal. Ukrainian radar operators hundreds of miles away saw the blips appear almost instantly. In command bunkers across the country, alarm tones echoed through metallic corridors. Screens glowed red as operators cross-checked speed, altitude, and direction. The intruders were unmistakable fast, low, and inbound. Within 14 minutes, Ukraine's air defense grid was alive, bristling with power. Patriot missile batteries spun into ready mode. Iris-T systems locked in. Data flowed like a living pulse through the command network coordinates, trajectory estimates, possible impact zones. The battle would not be decided by sheer firepower alone, but by seconds, calculations, and human judgment under pressure. Could Ukraine's digital precision and human courage outwit Russia's cold efficiency? Or would a single wrong keystroke or delayed command tip the scale toward catastrophe? At 8:42 a.m., October 6, 2025, the scene at Morozovsk was eerily cinematic. A veil of mist clung to the runway as blue taxiway lights cut pale beams through the haze. Inside the hangars, technicians moved with clockwork discipline, trading clipped confirmations. The aircraft gleamed with condensation as engines ignited, their low growl swelling into a full-bodied roar. Cockpit displays flickered, navigation lights blinked in rhythm, and then both Su-34s began to roll. "We're airborne," one pilot reported. Altitude increasing. Heading east. As they lifted off, the early morning fog scattered beneath them in swirling ribbons. It would be a short flight measured not in distance but in significance. These aircraft were not designed for air-to-air dominance but for precision devastation. Each carried a pair of KAB-500 guided bombs, each bomb weighing approximately 1,100 pounds. Capable of obliterating fortified infrastructure with surgical accuracy, guided by satellite or laser depending on battlefield conditions. For defense, they carried R-73 short-range infrared missiles, nimble, deadly, but limited to just over 18 miles of engagement range. Beneath their bellies, each jet bore a PTB-3000 external fuel tank, holding roughly 792 gallons, stretching their operational reach to over 1,200 miles, ample for their strike route and safe return. The numbers alone spoke volumes. These two aircraft carried enough explosive yield to devastate any major power facility. Their intended targets were the electrical nodes at Krivotrovsky choke points that powered millions of homes, hospitals, and command centers. Transmission lines, relay substations, and grid transformers all were part of the network that sustained both civilians and the military front. A successful hit could mean not just darkness but paralysis. One question lingered over the entire operation like static in the air. If those bombs found their mark, how many cities would flicker out? How many lives would hang by a thread in the absence of power? At 8:50 a.m., barely 8 minutes after takeoff, the invisible chessboard of modern warfare began to shift. Near Donetsk, an odd blip appeared on a regional radar feed. The mobile 3D early warning station, ADK-6M, flagged two high-speed contacts cutting across the southwest quadrant. The radar operators knew at once this was no false echo. The system logged velocity, direction, and altitude to inbound aircraft on a steady climb. Bogies confirmed, bearing 274, climbing, came the transmission. Instantly, the data was routed to the central campaign control node, where analysts and officers huddled over displays. This was not a single sensor anomaly. Within 2 minutes, additional radar stations, including the powerful 36D6M 113D scan array, corroborated the sighting. Their overlapping sweeps refined the track, confirming altitude transitions and acceleration curves. Digital markers began to connect, forming a crude but unmistakable trajectory heading toward Ukrainian-controlled airspace. Somewhere between the noise of static and the hum of machines, the battlefield was taking shape. Every new coordinate drawn on the screen was a heartbeat, a silent countdown to a confrontation neither side could afford to lose. A call in the operations center: stop continuous radar emissions at active sites. Shift to brief ping sweeps fire just long enough to confirm a contact, then shut down to lower the chance of being It was a hazardous move, but necessary to keep the sensor net intact without handing the enemy each station's coordinates. Communications carried at least 5 separate intelligence feeds: radar plots, eyewitness reports, commercial satellite images, and local radio traffic. In 10 minutes, a rapid plan took shape, preliminarily locked the approach corridor, repositioned the air defense batteries to choke point locations, and set up a forward ambush. By 8:56, 2 batteries were deployed, one nearby and another at Zaporizhzhia, selected as the gateway positions for approaches to Crivier. The units fielded modern hardware Patriot PAC-3 launchers, controlled by AMPQ-65 style fire radars with hit-to-kill interceptors, designed to defeat high-speed threats paired with systems integrated with mobile radars like the HIN, DTR, 4D, arrays and electro-optical infrared seeker-armed interceptors. Both families of systems provided fast reaction, multi-target tracking, and the mobility needed across open ground. Everything then stayed frozen on standby. On the operations displays, the Su-34 tracks were roughly 56 miles from the batteries. The countdown clocks were synced. Each short radar ping added another point to refine the optimal engagement window. Soldiers waited, tense but controlled. The commander quietly mouthed the order: hold fire. Don't hurry. Don't give away your position. In the Su-34 cockpits, the crews still believed they had a safe lane. Their navigation plots showed nothing alarming. But on the ground, the posture had shifted from passive monitoring to a prepared trap. From first contact at 8:52 weapons ready, at 9:04, only 14 minutes had slipped by. 14 minutes to fuse telemetry from some 80K6 channels, Patriot snapshot scans, and mobilize forces at Dnipro and Zaporizhzhia that span 5 separate data streams and 2 batteries in position. Turned a lightning raid into a baited kill zone, waiting for the moment to strike. If you think Ukraine's struggle should be told honestly and loudly, like, subscribe, and enable notifications. 9:04 a.m., October 6, 2025. Patriot and Iris-T SLM systems snapped to ready. The 9:06 countdown began. In the operation suite, digits rolled across the screens. 60:45. 30 seconds to engage. Weapons hot. 9:07. A measured, steely voice in the command hub transmitted the order: engage, track everything, launch. From the 2 gateway sites, 8 interceptors flashed out of their canisters from Dnipro. 4 from Zaporizhzhia, rising like fiery javelins, their exhaust cutting through the haze. In the Su-34 cockpits, small icons danced across the HUDs as lock indicators lit up. Alarms screamed. Pilots reacted, ejecting flares and dispensing chaff to confuse heat-seeking and radar-guided seekers. They jinked, climbed, and stalled, pushing the jets to shake off the missiles. One aircrew radioed back: "We're getting active tracking from unknown sources. RWR non-stop, flares expended, possible trap in the corridor between Dnipro and Zaporizhzhia requesting a heading." The response came flat and uncompromising over the headset: "Continue the mission. Do not RTB. Hold course. Complete the objective. Report after. Copy 909. Then the sky detonated. The lead Su-34 took a direct strike, erupting into a ball of flame as fuselage fragments rained over fields. The trailing aircraft was hit on the tail, spun out of control, and plunged like a heavy stone, coming down near the outskirts of Silence fell over the Russian command post. No more countdowns, only static, ragged breaths, and unanswered radio calls. The calculations and preparations made in those 14 minutes were now visible as black smoke. Ukraine's ambush had worked. 2 attackers put out of action, one obliterated in mid-air, and the other wrecked on impact. At 9:12 a.m., the air still shook from the aftershocks and news spread quickly. One Su-34 was confirmed destroyed. The other reported critically damaged, with early accounts offering mixed details. The planned deep strike against the Crivier and Nepropatrovsk energy nodes was called off. Within 3 hours, the consequences multiplied. All long-range strike sorties were suspended. At least a dozen combat missions slated for the next 48 hours were postponed. Air Force procedures were rewritten to require stronger escorts and longer pre-flight checks. The loss, or even partial loss, of a single bomber struck directly at operational strike capacity and logistics support. Pressure from above eased as strike plans against crucial energy nodes were put on hold and supply chains were reworked through the night. Air raid sirens echoed across Zaporizhzhia and Nepropatrovsk, while thousands near the crash sites were moved to temporary shelters. Hospitals flipped to backup generators as crews inspected power lines and nearby substations for damage from falling wreckage or retaliatory strikes. The internal tally was stark: more than 5,000 civilians affected by initial evacuations and 120 critical care patients moved to secondary hospitals within hours. Politically and diplomatically, the episode reverberated. An emergency session convened at the Security Council. Diplomats signaled urgent concern. Some partners urged restraint, and international media framed the event as a watershed in sensor-driven warfare, where radar, data fusion, and split-second choices reshaped strategic advantage. Local energy markets reacted with sharp, short-term spikes in electricity and emergency fuel contracts. Strategically, the takeaway was blunt: the sensor era shapes outcomes. An information ambush produced tangible results: canceled missions, delayed strikes, and a dented deep strike doctrine. Yet the toll was not zero. Trust frayed. Civilians endured hardship, and the danger of political escalation rose. As nightfall brought incoming reports in stark terms, one cold question persisted. In a conflict where sensors and decisions race by the second, what is the true cost of a single command to fire or to hold? On October 6, 2025, What unfolded was more than an aerial engagement. It was a trial of sensing, data, and judgment. In 14 minutes, two Su-34s that launched from Morozovsk were picked up by 80K6 and 36D6M11 radars and led into two Patriot and Iris-T kill zones at Dnipro and Zap. The hard facts were simple. 14 minutes, 5 data streams, 2 kill boxers, enough to turn a raid into a trap. What merits reflection is how choices were forced under pressure. Air defenses pulsed instead of broadcasting continuously to avoid geolocation. Commanders hesitated to fire to limit civilian risk. Pilots aborted when their margin vanished. Every move was a calculation: reveal the radar or conceal it. Shoot immediately or wait for confirmation. Press the strike or withdraw to save lives. Decisions that were technical, political, and humanitarian at once. The immediate effects were visible. Deep missions put on pause. Strike capacity eroded. Thousands displaced. Hospitals running on generators. Small initial numbers quickly cascaded into broader consequences affecting sortie schedules, energy supply chains, and civilian security, showing how a non-firing ambush can alter the tempo of a campaign. At the strategic level, the lesson was clear. In the sensor age, rapid collection, fusion, and decision-making can create an advantage or force an attack to stop. Yet these gains come with costs, escalation risk, diminishing trust, and civilian harm that commanders and policymakers must balance. Internationally, the incident produced diplomatic ripples, formal inquiries, and appeals for restraint, while the media turned a moment in the sky into a heated debate. Humanitarian impacts were immediate and real. Families battered by insecurity, hospitals in emergency mode, and communities left anxious. There is no simple verdict of right or wrong. Here only the reminder that decisions made in minutes can determine lives and strategic balances. Carry this story with one hard question. When sensors and speed drive every action, do we bear the responsibility to weigh humanitarian consequences before pressing the button and to plan for the long term?